zygote, all that stuff. So it'll be awesome. So I'm just gonna kind of kick the afternoon off with a little bit of layered earth. And we did some introductory layered earth last week. We did a Beyond the Basics layered earth last week. Now is a little bit more advanced. I'm going to look at actually getting some data up there, manipulating it a little bit, just some odds and ends of layered earth. Because who was in the Beyond the Basics last week? Who sat through that? Did we actually talk about putting data in? I don't think we did.
No, we did not.
Yeah, all right.
I would have remembered.
Yes, all right, so yes, it is possible. So I'll show you briefly how to do that, and then we'll look at one example. Something Scott and I did for a conference a few years back was to find a map of Mount Rainier and ancient Lahar flows from the last time it erupted. And so we imported that, we actually mapped it on Mount Rainier, and then used the ability in layered earth to draw shapes and actually traced out those paths so that they were nice, semi-transparent, mapping right onto the terrain. And then we just turned the map off, so it was just those shapes, and it looked really nice. So basically, I thought, in a half hour or so that we'll have, kind of take you through how we did that kind of deal. So, and then after that, Mary has something that'll probably be 10 times better than what I have. So, all right. So later, if you want to add your own data, you'll notice that we have over here something called user created in the layer menu, and we have a lot, not as much as we have on the other system, which is the one that we take all over the place. So let's say, okay, we have state boundaries, selection results. Let's say, for example, I have, no, that's not. Here we go, here's mine. All right, I have some data that I want to put in, like the Civil War. This is, you were here last year. Mike, I think, went through some of his Civil War era stuff, and then he made it available afterwards, I think, for everyone. So let's say you want to get this onto your system there. So in this folder are a bunch of KMZ files. KMZ are just zipped up KML files, all right? We'll look at a KML file a little bit, but I'm not going to go really into creating that or manipulating that. It's another discussion. It's not just layered earth centered. You can make them in Google Earth, which Michael also took you through last year of a brief example of how to do that. So this isn't so much a way of creating the data, but once you have it, or if you've done a Google search and you've gotten it, how you put it in there. So I have all this data. To get it into the layered earth, I have to find where layered earth is looking for all the data. So that's going to be in C, program files, Spitzing, and then the TOE dome, that's in all caps and with a bunch of letters, middle school to high school, earth data, layers. And if this is the first time you've ever added your own data into the layered earth, then all you will see here will be add-ons, earth, and then you'll have the TOE layers.xml. Dynamic folder you'll have to add if you want to add your own data. This is where layered earth will look for any additional data. So if it's something that Spitz has not provided for you, you're adding it yourself, you will be putting it into the dynamic folder. Now keep in mind, directly in the dynamic folder is what you will see listed over here in the layers menu in layered earth. So if you just want everything to be right in the front menu here and to have this start to look really busy, then you would just put it all right into here. What I have done and what I generally recommend for people is to have some kind of folder structure under here to keep it organized, just like we've done for you with all the other layers. So that, I have a user created, doesn't have to be user created. You could have, your folder and then someone else's folder. You could organize it by topics, whatever you want, just some kind of organizational structure, just so you don't clutter the whole layer menu over here. So like I said, I have done user created, and then in here are all the different data files or groups of files that I've added to the system. And so if I expand user created over here, you'll see that it matches really well with what we have here. So we have Mount Rainier there, we have sites somewhere. Yeah, sites if I can read. So these are what Layered Earth will read when it launches up, and then it will populate everything down here for you. So if I want to add some data, then I just find it where I have it here, Civil War. Copy that. Paste it in here. And now the trick is Layered Earth, it would be really great and nice and easy if we had them share the data location. It's not that way yet. Hopefully one of these updates will do that. So you have to put it on both pre-flight and on the RenderBox machine. Yeah, question?
The Washington DC file was a zip file. Is it reading that data in the zip file? Because I see it on the left also.
Originally it was a zip file, but this is what it's reading. Yeah.
Okay. I didn't see it.
So that was me being messy and not deleting that after I unzipped it.
Okay.
Recall that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I didn't see that.
All right. So what I'm going to do here, I could pop the drive out and put it back in there. What I do a lot of times, I don't know if anyone else does this, is I will copy and just throw it onto video. So we have a shortcut to video on RenderBox. Then I'll VNC over. And open up the window. And right in video will be what I just put there. So I know exactly where to find it, so it's an easy way of not taking the drive out and putting it in the RenderBox. And then the only difference on RenderBox is that the location is on the T drive. T is the drive for the Layered Earth. It's where the data lives that we give you. It's where all the satellite data lives, all that stuff goes on there. It's a 3 terabyte drive, so plenty of space here. And now everything else is exactly the same. And this path is in the Beyond the Basics notes that you all have there. So Earth data, there's dynamic, user created. And I want to make sure I put it exactly in the same spot. Because otherwise I will load it from pre-flight, but it won't load on RenderBox. So now what I have to do is close both. And relaunch. So relaunch it on RenderBox with Screen Manager, relaunch it on pre-flight with that little shortcut. A little stretch.
Brad, when you relaunch, you always have to launch them separately, pre-flight and RenderBox?
They're not tied together.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought that was just ISIS.
No.
That's normal? Okay.
It is. You could probably create a little batch file that launches them separate at the same time, just like we have for Star and Night. Wouldn't be too hard. All right. So now, if I take a look over here under User Created, what I hopefully find is, hey, Civil War. And now, if we do something for the first time, we can load it. I always like doing the Northern Virginia campaign because it's big enough that I can find it. And lo and behold, there we go. We have it on pre-flight and on RenderBox.
Didn't I give you a tour, Gadsby?
You did, but you know. Well, you did. No, I'm just saying from far away, I can zoom into Northern Virginia. It covers such a wide area. I mean, I know roughly where Gettysburg is, but you know. I can do Antietam, and now I have to get close enough to actually see the line and stuff. I'm not a history major like Mike is. All right, so it's there somewhere. So yeah, so we've now added all those Civil War battlefield sites on there. So it's pretty straightforward once you have the data to put it on there. It reads KML file format. There might be some features or icons or whatnot that KML references that CLE doesn't recognize. So put it on there. there might be a few things that just don't work or don't look the way you expect them to, by all means, give us a call, shoot us an email. We'll try out here, see if we can get that working or not. But as far as getting it up there and just seeing what it looks like, kind of dump it there, and that's where you put it. Okay. So another piece of data that we put there a while ago was Mount Rainier, and if I go ahead and turn that on, let's see if I broke through. Yeah, let's wait for it. Subject.
Haley's, right.
Oh, hey, look. It's what?
Screen Manager's right.
Yeah, Screen Manager sometimes lags behind. All right, I'm going to create it on pre-flood.
I'm finding when I'm messing around with Layered Earth, I have to remind it to go live like all the time.
Yep.
Where in Starry Night, you don't have to remind it hardly.
So
ever.
one thing that might be going on, do you use spacebar a lot?
Not in Layered Earth.
Okay. Okay, just a side note then. If you do use spacebar, I found if you click the live button and then immediately hit spacebar, it takes you out of live mode.
Okay.
So that's something I find myself doing. I don't know why. It's a feature, but yeah, if you're constantly having to reconnect it there, it shouldn't be doing that. Are a lot of people having this problem?
I am, but
Yep.
I'm not hitting the space bar.
Okay.
Now I'm not in Layered Earth, once a month maybe, but just.
Okay. Thank you for telling me that. What was I doing? Oh yeah. Not Rainier. Not Rainier has a few different things in it. Let's see if it'll turn on properly this time. I don't think pre-flight is locking this very much. Give me a minute because I don't think side touch is actually. Oh, the battery. 1 second. Talk amongst yourselves.
Yes, it does run on batteries.
Make a mask. Seeing some bright objects. I'm sure that's everyone's brains thinking very hard. Hey, there we go. All right. All right, so what we have here in Mount Rainier is, let me blank this out. Is a map, and they have a few markers placed there. But the useful part was this map that overlays on top of Mount Rainier and actually conforms to the terrain, which is pretty cool in and of itself. Like you can see it follow the rivers and whatnot. And so what we decided we wanted to do was to basically map out these different regions and come up with a short little story. If Mount Rainier goes again, historically, where are the areas where you might have a chance to survive and where you just completely screwed, based on where the Lahars went and how much time you might have to escape and whatnot. So step one was actually finding this map. And if I take us into Mount Rainier here, I was able to find this online. And I'll go ahead and actually open this up in Word. So it makes it a little bit less scary. So most of it, we're not going to really go through a lot of this, but it's just basically giving the file all the information it needs to markers everywhere and the map part. So the map is really what I'm interested in. And the map is, I come to user created. Really? All right. The map was going to be a JPEG, I think it was. There we go. So what I've done here is just jump down to the actual JPEG image that is turning the map on and off. And just to give you a sense of what's going on here. So it's actually pulling this from a website. So this is the location of that map. And I think that I should probably be able to still go up there. So this is where it's actually pulling it from. So instead of having an image, some of them you might have an image there as part of the materials, and then it's just referencing that image on the local disk. This just had the website, so this is the image that it's pulling from. And then all the other information in that file is telling it like the longitude, latitude, where to place it, how to angle it. The altitude is it floating above the surface? Is it anchored right onto the terrain and whatnot? So if you want to kind of go through and start putting your own images on there, you can. What you'll create will look very similar to this type of thing here. And this is the part that is useful. Like I could get rid of the majority of the rest of this, and like I might not have those numbers floating there and the names and whatnot. But for my purpose, it would suit just fine. So, there we go. I gave it enough time to think. So I'm going to turn off the things that I don't care about there and zoom in. So I have it mapped out there, that's fantastic. What I want to do now is to trace out those patterns there. So if you forget how to create shapes on there, I go into projection mode on layer editor. And then that's going to zoom me in really far for whatever reason. And now the tool that I want would be polygon. And I was going to place a triangle right there. It's going to be tricky. I'm going to position it over. It's very blurry, so it's going to be really tricky because pre-flight is just not acting on here. Mary, I will restart before we do your thing. And so what I'm basically with the red one here, what I'm trying to do, not very well. is to map out there. This one down. Here. It's a lot easier when pre-flight is actually behaving for you. So basically, a key will add yet another node, and what Scott and I did was basically it took a while, but we were able to kind of nicely map out some hard features. Another one there. Another one. So I'm not going to bore you and do the whole thing unless you guys want to stay here until next week. And I will jump to. So this is one of the favorites that we made that is outlining basically the kill zone. And then another one that we made was this one. And so this one is actually outlining all those different lahars that were on the map. So we picked the color that corresponded to it, and it came out decently well. It follows along the terrain, the rivers very nicely. You have the outline of the real danger zone there, and then the yellow and the red areas are those lahars where it's just basically following the river paths there. And so what we did with this, we actually zoom out, and we did the same thing for Mount St. Helens, and you can actually compare the two. I think this one, yeah, I actually had them both there. You could take Mount Rainier's and just drag it on top of Mount St. Helens at that point, and kind of compare what people are familiar with when Mount St. Helens went off versus what might happen when Mount Rainier went off. And you can just do a little script like that, which is what we did, kind of stepping through what would go on and whatnot. Those little node points, you can turn those on and off very easily. You can turn the entire shape off if you want, and save it into the favorite, and then have a big reveal whenever you want it. And these shapes are saved into your favorite file. So if you create it, it's not going to be a layer that you can call later into another favorite. So if you want to use it later, in another show, load a favorite where it exists already, and then go from there. Somewhere down the line, it would be nice to have those kind of exist outside of favorites, but Clint has a fair amount on his plate right now, so it's not currently in the list. That's what I had planned to go through. I was planning to spend a little bit more time in pre-flight was behaving there, but you guys want to throw another data set on there since I have the time? Is everyone asleep? I would. All right, another one that I have. Let's do shoe. Let's see if this one works. Shoes. Put you there. tested this on one system, and so clearly it should work a lot different.
Usually just instead of 5 flies before they put people on it. So.
Ah, well, there we go. For our video, in video. Shoes. And T. Here, well. All right, let's see what shoes looks like. Anyone have a guess as to shoes? I think I told one person what it might be.
Is it elephant shoes?
No, that would be fantastic. Wasn't anticipating such an interest in elephants, so I didn't really plan for that. All right, let's see. Yeah, so it's in the news. It's been in and out of the news for a few years now. They're finding in around Victoria Island, or Vancouver Island, sorry, Victoria, shoes, like always one shoe, never a pair. And this is someone has actually gone through and kind of mapped out where they discovered it to see if there's any kind of a pattern or whatnot. Last I checked into it, there's not much of a pattern. It's just kind of completely random. Just the odd thing is it's always one. Whether that means anything, I mean, it's highly unlikely that there's a serial killer who's just dropping one shoe in there with the way water flows and whatnot. But this is, I was curious, after having seen it in the news a few times, if someone actually plotted all that data out, and they had. And so
was it a shoe or
it's a shoe with the foot.
That's okay.
In it.
Okay. Yeah, I was gonna say the shoe isn't that like that.
I mean, I didn't know quite how morbid you wanted me to go.
Okay, yeah. But that makes it a little bit more spectacular. That makes it a little bit more odd.
No, they were, they were filled with,
So, Brad, no question. So, out of all the shoes they've found, none have been a pair?
Yes. I'm sure they may have found other objects that had more than 1 foot. But as far as this is going, what has hit the news, and I think it's not always the same left or right,
Right, sure.
but it's always only just one that they found, and then they search the a huge area around that one, and they never find the pair.
Yeah, do they do DNA tests or anything?
As far as I don't
What's the
think.
percentage of left?
You can Google that. You can Google that. No, the reason I threw this up here is oftentimes if it's in the national news and it's dealing with stuff in the United States, a lot of times you'll be able to do a Google search and find data that KML data that you put in there. Not all the time. If it's international, it's much less likely, but there tend to be a lot of people in the U.S. That do stuff kind of like this. You always want to virus check it first, obviously, before you put it on the film. But
What about missing flight Malaysia 370, for example?
do Google. So basically, do a Google search of whatever you're interested in.
Like where they
And
find
AML.
Found shoes with feet in them.
When you hear about stuff like this and you're looking for stuff on the internet, the KML file, how often are you able to find a KML file that works versus KML file that has extra information that Layered Earth doesn't do or is just crap? What's your hit rate with that?
As far as me being able to get what I want on the dome just doing a Google search, After finding it, maybe 50, 60%. Now, a lot of times it just has a lot of extra stuff that they haven't organized well, so it's not easy to turn them all off. Like if all, like in this particular one, all, or the Mount Rainier one, all those number markers were part of the same group, so I could just do one click and have them all go off. There is, like the election data, I have a county by county 2016 presidential election results for the entire nation. Each county is its own column. So if you want to just turn off Wyoming,
Sounds fine.
it's not, and they're not even ordered alphabetically or anything like that. So when you get it from someone else, you're kind of stuck with what they've done, unless you know enough that you can go in and manipulate it. But that still kind of is based on, did they set it up in such a way that it's easy to do that, or should you just really start from scratch?
Because we were trying to do something similar to what you did with, I mean, we were talking about this, but
Yeah.
we tried to do something very similar with TLE for the D-Day, looking at the Normandy beaches and trying to find that, and having like little spots, and it was just very cool. We found one that you could put, it had like different landing sites, but once we sort of changed perspectives a little bit, things started flying off.
We did notice
Like there
that,
was an airplane back there.
yeah, we did notice an issue with markers specifically, where TLE was having a tendency to put them like hundreds of miles up in the air. I think we've kicked that out, so the next TLE update, we try it again, the next TLE update, and see if it puts them actually on the surface like it should.
Could I take that file and manipulate it so that those pins are color coordinated to earliest found and most recent found?
Possibly. You look in there and see what they're, the icon that they're using for that, and see if you can get a different color pin or whatnot. Because you go online, there are a lot of files that or documents helping you with KML. There are a lot of basically stock icons and images that they can use. So yeah. Yeah. Do you have a question?
Oh, the one data set, is it part of the data set? How is it number one, number two, bridge, and then the rest of the dates, or is that?
Yes. Yeah, it's reading it right out of the file. So if they just wanted the number one, that's what it is there.
Brad, I'm not sure if you already covered this, but this might be like that's an example of it, where this is a subject that is not, we're just talking about stars, we're talking about severed feet. And I think that
Part of
TLE has the potential to cover really sensitive topics like this, and it's difficult for us to avoid that. We could also just sort of deal with it head on with our email discussions with lessons that we present to students. I'm a little bit concerned about that, but I'm curious. If you generally try to avoid certain subjects or deal with them head on.
I had a physics teacher who would literally just be as blunt as possible, but she did get fired, so.
There we go.
Yeah.
Where would severed feet fall into the next generation science standards? Maybe we should open that up for discussion. What section would that fall under?
Well, instead of severed feet, we could be talking about climate change. Or
Super related.
or biodiversity or race.
Yeah, actually, yeah. We took forensics in high school.
Excuse me. I have a really peculiar problem. Okay, since I'm pseudomus at the moment until 2022, on my old pseudome system was this wonderful KLM file about, how high above and below sea level stuff was. So I could often frighten my audience with the fact that the next county over was going to soon flood and all kinds of other stuff. Well, now I have layered earth on my computer, and I can put layered earth when I do this in class, and I want to do it alone. So what I really need is the layered earth file, which works on Sidon, and import it under the normal KLM thing, so I can continue to frighten people.
So you haven't found it. It should be under climate.
Yeah, I know where it is, but
Yeah.
remember, I don't have a damn Sidon.
Right, but it should also be in the desktop version.
No, it's not.
Okay.
None of the okay, I have a desktop version.
All right, we can look at that later then.
Okay, later.
Yeah.
Because I really want it really, really bad. I used it often. So it's like I've lost a major curricular factor.
All right, I'm going to turn things over to Mary now.
So were you gonna restart?
I can, yeah. If you have a little like intro.
Well, I think that I thought that Eric was actually just trying to segue to me. So hi everybody, my name's Mary. And my answer to your question is head on, 100%. Dealing with things head on, severed feet, climate change, whatever. And in particular, climate change is a great motivation for my work with the layered earth.
Boy, is it.
So it's true, we're not just dealing with stars, and that's kind of the point of my little talk today. How can we use the layered earth as a tool to bring faculty and students from other disciplines into the planetarium? I work at Framingham State University, so I'm not faculty. Everyone has been thinking that, but no, I'm not faculty. We're a science center at the university. And so faculty, if they choose, if they know we exist, which a lot don't, can come and bring their classes and use our resources at the planetarium. We're a small state university. We don't have much in the way of astronomy, physics, that kind of thing. We definitely don't have departments for those things. They're kind of bundled in the sort of physics or science department. I actually don't have astronomy come in a lot, because there just aren't that many courses in astronomy taught at the university. So I really was looking for ways to get other disciplines involved. And actually FSU has sort of an initiative, which some of us consider very important, to talk about global issues, global important issues across the curriculum, one of them being climate change. So the title of my little talk today was Adding Data to the Layered Earth, but you already heard about that a lot with Brad, and I can certainly answer any questions you may have. But I really wanted to more just share my experience using Layered Earth in a variety of college courses this past year. All right, so I think we're gonna start with just sort of a little demo lesson in just another minute. And I'll see what questions people might have, and then I'll just show you more if you don't have any questions. All right, so any questions so far? Yes?
Is there any way, or was it ever considered that you can invite neighboring colleges and university astronomy classes?
Can we invite neighboring college and university astronomy classes? That's a very good question, and interestingly, it's all very organic. You know, we don't have the people or the budget to like advertise for what we're doing, but I have organically gotten to know some neighboring colleges, and we're kind of trying to decide what like the fee situation would be for that, because FSU classes obviously, I would think, don't have to pay to use the planetarium, but a general group would, so we don't know where neighboring colleges would fit in there. But I would think that there's a lot we can get from them too. So it, you know, in terms of like their expertise, so it really could be like a reciprocal thing. Okay. Oh, okay. So I should probably tell you all what courses I worked with. So I'll just turn this down just a little bit. So actually, the condition for getting the funding that we needed to get Layered Earth and the necessary equipment I had to agree to do certain things, such as bring in faculty from different departments, and I also was given the task to create semester-long experiences for 2 particular courses. And those were a physics course called Physics, Nature, and Society, which was sort of a general, non-major physics course, but based around the topic of climate change. And then the other course was World Regional Geography. So I'm going to be talking a lot about geography today. And this demo lesson that you're going to see is an example of something that I did in World Regional Geography. So I think I've already told this story, but the geography professor was not on board at first. He said, listen, Mary, World Regional Geography means I have to cover every region of the world in only 1 semester. I don't have time for this. And I mean, first of all, how's he going to cover every region in the world in 1 semester? That's just not going to happen no matter what. So you might as well just accept that and make it fun while you're struggling to get at least half the regions of the world done. So this was a lesson that I came up with based on his notes on the region of the world known as Sub-Saharan Africa. So what we're starting here is probably one of the most useful layers that's built into layered Earth, which is night lights. And so I would probably just start with having this up and just start by asking the students, what they notice about the Earth at night. And, particularly World Regional is a human geography course. So what does looking at Earth at night tell us about people and the way they live?
Too many of them.
Yeah.
Go right ahead. Anybody else?
Cluster up.
They cluster up. Okay, and where?
Only in cities.
Okay, very good, very good. So people are saying water, and that's something that's like, Geography 101. Like you learn that like people live near water. So that's really great that you went there. Actually, I don't have a SciTouch at my site. So can I learn how to use this real quick?
Yeah.
Just how do you grab the Earth and stop it?
First, we have to get those pinkiness and pencil.
Oh, okay.
So the top menu button is your left.
Okay.
And then the trigger is your right.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then the thumb rocker is your right.
Okay. So to grab and turn.
Here's that. Yeah.
I like to live dangerously. Doing something for the first time. Okay. Okay.
Now you'll be in Sub-Saharan Africa.
Sub-Saharan Africa, yeah. So after looking at the entire world, we're going to focus on Sub-Saharan Africa, and that's all I'm willing to try on SciTouch. But so, okay. Now, of course, I'm sending this scene from RenderBox back to my pre-flight so that I can do stuff on pre-flight here. Oops. So if you don't know exactly what Sub-Saharan Africa is, we're not going to talk about like latitudes or specific regions. You're just going to say, okay, that's the Sahara. It's everything under that.
It's really dry.
Okay. So Sub-Saharan Africa, people were talking about people living near water. And of course, the thing we didn't even mention is the fact that the place where we see the lights is indicating where the people live. And we think they're sort of clustered around water. So now let's see if, first of all, some of the guesses that we made track reality for population in this area. So this is population density, and if you look at the rest of the world, you'll see that this really does track the night lights perfectly.
Yeah.
Where you see lights at night is where the highest population density is. It doesn't exactly track Sub-Saharan Africa perfectly, and it's one of the only regions in the world where it doesn't. You also don't see that that the population density necessarily tracks water like we thought. It definitely does to some extent, but not totally. So what is behind these, patterns in population that we see there? Does anybody think they know anything about this region?
I
took a fourth-year university course in it.
And that's been a while now? Yeah.
You can't see light through a tree in the Congo.
Okay, so you're getting there. And this is actually something I really learned from this course. One of the most important things that affects population growth in sub-Saharan Africa is what type of soil is present there. And this is more information than you ever want to know about soils. But most importantly, look at the first two. The first two are the only ones that really matter. The green, high nutrient soil, and the purple volcanic soils, which is also very good for growing. The rest of them are really not very good for growing anything. And I have to say, I have gotten more interest from this map than almost anything else in TLE. And this map, when I did this demo for some other faculty, a couple of other different faculty members got on board. In particular, I've really started a relationship with the food and nutrition department. She was super interested in this, and we're now doing stuff about soils and agriculture in the United States. But you can see that there are not a lot of areas of high nutrient soil in sub-Saharan Africa. What we do see a lot, you mentioned the Congo, that's going to be those tropical forests where yes, stuff is growing, but it's not the type of soil that you can grow crops on very effectively. So let's go back and look at population density again. So I'm going back into Layered Earth Live again, and let's look at population density. You might not know that you can you can turn off just scales if you want. But yeah, so what you'll see is the population density is really going to be where you see those green regions, the high nutrient soils. And one other region where you see really high density is over here. You actually see some of those purple soils in, do I have a laser? Yeah.
I have one in my pocket if you do.
No, this is fine. In this region here. So you can probably start to maybe see what's the source of some of those soils. And let's find out. So this region here is the East African Rift Valley. It's a divergent plate zone where the African plate is in the process of splitting into two different plates, known as the Somali plate and the Nubian plate. And this action has contributed to a lot of volcanic activity in the region, including the Mount Kilimanjaro. So you can see how a lesson like this really starts to spiral into many, many other topic areas. So back to thinking about soil. This is a layer that comes from the Science on a Sphere layers that I personally am not the biggest fan of because I don't really know exactly what the values are here, but the faculty really like this one because this really gets at some of the human factors they want to talk about. So you can see there's not a lot of cropland land being used for crops in sub-Saharan Africa. And I think probably a good thing would be to compare to other regions like the United States. Or I think what's really interesting is somewhere like India, where you think that you have a somewhat similar climate in terms of temperatures, and I think we know that there is some significant poverty in this region, but they just have such a better situation in terms of their ability to grow crops. On the other hand, there is more activity in pasture land in this region, but again, what I don't really love about this data set is that it doesn't really explain it that well, whether this is industrial pasture land or more like subsistence farming with very few animals. So this is the kind of thing that inspires me to want to learn more and get my own data that perhaps better addresses exactly what I want to say. But I just brought it up because faculty seem to really like it. So,
Mary,
yes.
there's an incredibly wicked war going on here. If you move into there, you're murdered.
Well, yeah, and all these issues are connected, absolutely. So at this point, I might talk about, and this is something I think we've all heard about this week, the Tropic of Cancer and the Tropic of Capricorn. So most of this region is located between the Tropics of Cancer and Capricorn, meaning that most of sub-Saharan Africa is in the tropics. And it's one of the only global regions that is like almost entirely in the tropics. And so this might be a good time to transition to a Starry Night lesson about what makes the tropics the way they are. And I think that is what I actually did in the 1 hour long class. I will not do that today. But here's where we now connect to topics of global climate change. So the next map, which I'm going to bring up, is actually not going to come up today, but I will tell you what it was. It was a map of, and maybe some of you remember this, it was supposed to be a map of the probability of contracting dengue fever in the year 2010.
Right.
Has anybody seen that on their layered earth? Okay, it was one that was like that came with Science on a Sphere and then disappeared, and I personally begged for it back because if you look at the entire world, you will see that the dengue fever was pretty much highest in regions in the tropics. And that's because it's a virus that's carried by mosquitoes. So in the course of this lesson, I learned that there are over 3,500 known species of mosquitoes, and various diseases are carried by only one species. So dengue fever is carried by the Aedes aegypti species, as well as Zika is also carried by that, and yellow fever. That species has a very distinct ecological niche in the tropics. But with global climate change happening the way it is, those distributions for those species are expanding. So what used to be known as tropical diseases are making their way into more of the world. So this is a time where I did look up my own data and find some more information on this. So we're gonna go live into Layered Earth, and let's bring up one. This is a work in progress. This one doesn't look that good. This is, let's see. That's the United States. We are lucky to have not much of this disease. So back to sub-Saharan Africa. The disease we're looking at now is malaria. So malaria is not a virus. It's caused by a unicellular parasite that is carried by the Anopheles species of mosquito. And this map is showing the prevalence rate, and you can see over to your left the scale. The parasite, which has that lovely name, its rate of prevalence in 2 through 10-year-old children. So this species, Anopheles mosquito, its distribution is also increasing in range. Even though overall rates of malaria are declining because of interventions. So this map, I found this data. This was not in KML format. So someone asked a question, how often do you successfully find KML data? I would say my rates are not that good, especially for non-United States based issues. So this particular source of data was something called the Malaria Atlas Project. And so in the source of my Googling, I'm like, I want to talk about tropical diseases and I need maps. It seems perfect. So Malaria Atlas Project, they were giving me a format called GeoTIFF raster files. So those are like images that wrap onto a geographic system, some sort of projection system. In Google Earth, it would be the globe, and that's what I was able to do here. Now, to get myself to the point that I could do this took a really, really long time, and it also took a lot of collaboration with the geography department. So it kind of morphed from me helping geography teach their classes to geography teaching me the geospatial information systems, GIS skills that I needed to take other kinds of data sets and turn them into KMLs. And it's not just a question of turning them into KMLs. You often do have to change the color scheme, the resolution, and then you have to get your legend or scale in a format that's going to look good on the dome, that's why this is a work in progress. I don't really like the way that looks, but at least you can read it. So that's sort of the lesson, and I wanted to pause now and see if anyone has questions. Questions, anyone?
So how did you get this data into TLE? You said it came in this weird file format.
Okay, yeah, I mean, a geographer would not think GeoTIFF is a weird file format. It's a pretty standard geographic format. Yeah, so I downloaded it from them in that format. I would say a great piece of advice is to contact the source of data and ask them if they will give it to you in KML. That would be the first thing I would do. The second thing I would do is make friends with a geographer and learn how to do some of these things. Those of you that work in universities that have a geography department, you likely have a license, a lab where there's computers that have professional GIS software. And when I walked in with this, they were interested in helping me. I feel like you have to have something to show them. You know, you can't just say, I need you to do this, this, and this.
Environmental scientists, environmental science is another department where you find GIS people.
Yeah, that's actually our geography. We don't have a geography department. It's just a very, very successful major program that's a collaboration between, I guess, the School of Social Science and Environmental Science. So it's like a major that's administered by two different departments. Yeah, but there are plenty of data sets in KML. So it's kind of a question of, it depends on what you're doing. Like if you're just kind of looking for cool stuff to show in your dome, you can probably find some KMLs. But if there's something you like really, a particular thing you want to teach, you may have to do some work to manipulate it. But definitely, I just thought of that you definitely should call and ask for advice and see if someone will give you KML data. Actually, I did contact Malaria Atlas Project, and they were in the middle of, this was about in the fall semester, they were in the middle of a transfer of data. They were in the middle of getting new data, so they said, we want to help you, but we're super busy right now. And then we kind of lost the train on that one. This data is actually brand new. This was published in the Lancet in June 2019. Wow. So yeah. So I think the idea that you can have like really, really new data is something that makes TLE and just I think studying the Earth in general kind of very different than the way we approach like astronomy, is that you want your data to be the latest data. Does anybody have any other questions so far? Yes.
About how long would that process take once you actually found one that you liked to manipulate it to?
This particular one did take quite a bit. GeoTIFFs are not the best, I would say, format to work with. Like, you were just saying there's some data set that you really, really want, and I think that when you really, really want one, you're gonna do what you need to do to get it looking good. Yeah, GeoTIFFs are a little bit difficult to work with. So this one took me a while just because I was pretty obsessed with the color scale that I was trying to get. I wanted it to look just like it did in the Lancet, so it looked exactly the same. Of course, you know, if you're in a classroom teacher, you could just put the GeoTIFF up on your screen, but you know, we can't do that. So we're gonna have to do a little manipulation. I mean, this particular one took me a couple hours to get to this point, but the actual whole process of like developing my understanding of geospatial technology was months. Sorry.
But next time that happens, you'll have all that solved.
Yeah, and if I had maybe just gone to the, like, if I had just gotten a student from the department working for me faster, I would have gotten more done. I have one now, I'm very excited to say. He's back at home working hard right now, and I'll probably show you what he's doing in a moment. Anybody else? All right, let me see how I'm doing on time. Not that good. Okay. All right, so I think I'll put the interface up right now. How do I do that? So I'm going to skip off. Okay. So, how many of you have used the Science on a Sphere layers? One, okay, wow. Yeah, so they're okay.
The resolution is generally crappy.
Yes, the resolution is
that
not
proves
good.
I've used it.
So I think the Science on a Sphere layers are just like I said before, a good place to get ideas of where to start and then look for your own
later.
data. Yeah. So wow, I thought I was gonna say like, okay, who used Science on a Sphere? And like half of you would raise your hand. And then like I'd say, okay, who's used this one? And then it would go, but no one's used it. Okay, so under atmosphere, so this, you would never really think to do this. Under Science on a Sphere, atmosphere, I'm scrolling down to this one, Globe Neo, what's that? And then there's kind of some interesting things here. So let me reset my globe. So Globe and Neo are both acronyms. I'll bring one up. I think I'm bringing one up. Oh, okay, yeah. You see there's the tree structure. You have to have every layer of the tree structure.
Right, doesn't work.
So what you're seeing here, so this is insulation. Insulation. Okay. Oh, that doesn't look too good. But that's actually a great example. So NEO stands for NASA Earth Observations. So this is actually data from a NASA satellite that's observing the amount of insolation, the amount of solar energy that's received at each point on the Earth. That's really interesting. That has implications for a lot of different things I want to talk about, like solar energy, crops, things, the sub-Saharan Africa area. We talked about seasons. So I thought this is really interesting, but I don't like this. And also, if you look at the menu over here, this data is from 2007. Now, we all know that the amount of insolation received on Earth probably hasn't changed much since 2007, but will people become a little distrustful of you if you're showing data from 2007? I think maybe. So I wanted to find out where I could find this data, and of course, just start, like we said, by Googling. And so NEO, I don't know how exactly I found this out, but it stands for NASA Earth Observations. Let's find out what's there. Do we have internet access here?
No, internet's out.
Internet's out. Oh no.
Did you end up taking did Giovanni or not? I'm guessing.
No, I didn't need to. Oh, that's too bad. I can't show you because it would have been a big reveal that, see, Harold is asking about something that's kind of complicated, but it actually turned out to be easier. So the NASA Earth Observations website has the data that I showed you as one example. It has about 50 different types of data sets of NASA satellite data. They have it for 10 years or more up to the current date, and they have it in KML format. So I went and downloaded a bunch of that, or actually I didn't, because that was going to take a long time, but that's what my intern is at home doing. And basically, they've downloaded a whole bunch of different things for several years, and I'm working on making sort of like a set of lessons about them. So, oh, these are Word documents. Okay, but I have them in paper format. Yeah, I'm just making a series of lessons related to these data sets. There are things like looking at albedo, rainfall, cloud cover, and how they're all related, land cover. So that's something that's been very exciting, and that I'm using a geography student to help me with that. So I know we do probably have to move on. I know we're running out of time, but there's so much more. Maybe if I could just show one more. I think I've promised people this one. This is not related to NASA, but let's see. This one is a little bit more local.
See the cute seal.
Yeah, cute seal. Great.
What's that damn thing he has attached to it? Looks like it hurt him. Tracking device, yeah.
Anything dealing with
Yeah.
Wanted to explain.
So this is, yeah, right here, this is GPS data from a seal. I actually found out from the layered earth, so a discovery that happened from the layered earth, I found out that there were seals in Massachusetts on Cape Cod, that they come there every October to like breed, and there's hundreds of them along the beach. And you can actually see it in the layered earth. We're not going to do that today for certain reasons, but you can in a couple of weeks. And I thought, wouldn't it be cool if I could get GPS data that shows the migration of these seals? So there's lovely Cape Cod Islands, and this is the GPS data from Madison over there. And you can see on her back, there's just like a GPS transponder, it's just like epoxied to her back. So the end of the line does not mean that Madison died or anything, it just means that the thing comes off. And this is just something, you know, I can imagine students working on a project like this, because the way they do it is they go down to the Cape, you have to take like a 4-wheel drive, and then they have to like wrangle up baby seals and epoxy things onto their back. So of course they have their student interns do that work. And then so a student can come and say like, that's my seal, you know, and I put the data up on the dome. Now this is data that just comes, I got it from the web from a researcher, that just comes in like Excel format, so it's just like GPS coordinates. And that I did have to take into ArcMap, ArcGIS to create just a little, you know, a path. But that's the kind of thing that a geography student would find very easy. So just a couple of examples of how you can bring in other disciplines. And I also wanted to point out that this is not something that, so obviously this was a KML file that didn't exist until I exported it. And then this was just sort of something that I made, like a little, you know, in like Photoshop. And you can put any kind of image like this by putting it into your KML file as like a screen overlay. So it doesn't just have to be like the legend. If you want to put up other information, you can just find an image and get it in there like that.
That's the way you get slides to work in layered earth at the moment.
See, Harold already knows everything.
No, I don't. I just learned it from you. Thank you.
Yeah, but it is a way to get any image you want, and more than one. You can have multiple. So if
Now, how did you do that part of it? Because I don't understand that.
Okay, great question. So let's turn the lights back up. So you can imagine how you would just make the image, like, you know,
Sure.
screenshot that, make your,
Sure.
yeah. But how do you, so, yeah, so,
You
when
just
open
added
up
a huge
Oh, I need to
capacity
get
to
this.
TLE.
What was that?
You just added a huge capacity to TLE to those of us who actually use it. Thank you.
I didn't come up with it.
Well, whoever did.
Okay, so when you open up a KML file, it's gonna look really scary like this, but I think you saw that, like, some of them, this is one of the NASA Earth observations. You can just, you know, you can make breaks and spaces to make it look more normal. and you can find that, like, just find where it says screen overlay in your, yeah.
It's just HTML to me. It's actually
Oh,
fairly readable.
can I point to something with this?
Like just be too much.
Okay. Well, anyway, you see where it says screen overlay. So yeah, so just find that in your document, and then you see where below it it's like / screen overlay. So everything in that refers to that screen overlay. And a KML file may have more than one of those. So this one has 2. Oh, thank you. Yeah, I got it. So this one has 2. This one is just sort of a label, like that'll just be the NASA logo right there. And then this one down here is the color bar. So for this file, you would see 2 different images displayed on the dome. And then you'll see that this is the file that it points to, that PNG right there. There's that one, and there's that one. In this case, because those are not linked to a website, those images would have to be in the folder with the KML so that they can point to that. And what I did is I just sort of like copied this and like then added that to another KML file, and then type in the file name of the image that you want. So yeah, the trick is though, there's not much capability for like changing the size within the KML. So make sure the image is a good size, like in Photoshop. Figure that all out before. And the only things you can really play with here are like the screen XY. Like that's going to show you where it's going to appear on the dome, and that's really going to require some trial and error. See if it works the way it says first, and then if not, change it. And then you could probably change like rotation and stuff. So I have these printed out too, and I can add this to. I don't know. Is that easy? What do people?
Please add this. This is really golden.
Yeah.
The SciDome or the SciDome Google Drive,
Course notes.
or do you want me to put it in the course notes thing?
Course notes are best.
So I have to give you stuff. The course notes have to go through you.
Yeah. I mean it's just a link to the Spitz website.
Okay. Yeah. So yeah, this I thought this might be helpful. Yeah. All right, I think that's definitely overtime. So if you have any more questions, please come to me. I have like the layer. This is like the notes from this session right here, but I'll add it to the folder. Okay, thank you.
All right, awesome. Thank you. Let's take about 10 minutes and then meet over the 30-foot dome for some